Before we get into the video today, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Gnostic TV. Gnostic TV is ancient wisdom reimagined. This is a Netflix for those who are spiritually curious and want a place to go where there is no censorship. I personally am doing a whole series on Gnostic TV called The Esoteric Explorer, where I am providing exclusive content to Gnostic. Gnostic TV is a host to all sorts of different content creators, many of whom are your old favorites. If you would like to check out Gnostic TV, there is a link down in the description box below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. I know this video is a little bit late this week. Usually we do these on Thursdays, but thus is the world we live in, and I had some power issues due to construction yesterday, so we're filming this a day later. How are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm really good. I'm really good, thanks. I'm bearing up in the no sun at all out there, very grey, but we're nearly actually at the longest day, so I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine.
Yeah, we were just chit-chatting off camera, and there's just so much going on in the world, but this is a follow-up video to what we kind of started on Catherine's channel last week. And for those who are new to my channel, Catherine and I alternate every other week, and we do these coffee chats where we just kind of talk about a topic where we, actually this topic we're talking about, we actually do have a lot of education, and so we do kind of have some answers for you with this topic, but typically we talk about stuff where we can kind of theorize and speculate over what the answer is, and we invite you to join along with us and talk to us back in the comment section, because it's like we're having coffee with a bunch of our friends globally. But we started off last week. You had this brilliant idea, Catherine, because off camera, you and I both, as a lot of our subscribers know, we'll just say we kind of work in health, alternative health, we'll say. And that's kind of our passion is, I'm in the yoga world. I like the energetic properties, which also feed into the physical. And you've been a biologist for years now. And so you kind of know the science portion of this. And so we talked about last week on your channel about why wait till the new year to kind of start changing yourself. And of course, a lot of that comes with health and weight loss. So that's what we typically see with people, but that could mean anything. But because health is something that we both are kind of educated in, we're going to continue that today and continue talking about a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about cortisol levels, because I got a lot of questions about cortisol levels. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. Catherine, you have an ebook out that I could show when you're ready. So where do you want to kick off from, Catherine? Where do you want to start with this today?
Well, why? Oh, I really loved the interaction last week. And why don't we start with why we want to be looking at giving thought. Why do people have New Year's resolutions in the first place? Why don't we want to wait until 2025? And I think one of the things that comes up a lot, I mean, we've spoken about Ikigai, about living your life's purpose, and you speak about that a lot from the spiritual perspective of your of all your education you've done in that area. But one of the things I think we're finding so much, where so many people, including we fall into this category at times as well, is, I love the fact that Yogi Berra says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And a lot of the time, people don't set goals for themselves. We think of ourselves as a community as open-minded and not falling so much for the propaganda. I think we all realise that we're all still programmable. But equally, if we're not having a clear goal and purpose in our life, we're going to get swept along by the latest drama, the latest disclosure, the latest trauma that's being thrown at us from all angles. So should we sort of start by, because this fits into the cortisol, by saying why it's really important to take stock of where you're at, and very importantly, set a clear intention and goal about what changes you want to make.
I think that's great. And it's interesting when we talk about I just remember There was a study once, the guys, I don't have all the information, but I do remember because it was like aha, like when I heard this study, when we talk about, how many people do we know, not even with New Year's, say I'll start my diet Monday, or I'll do this on Monday, I'll start then. This is when this change is going to happen. And psychologically, what this study found is that when we're perceiving ourselves in the future, we're perceiving ourselves as a different person. It's not a subconscious
Yes.
thing, but we're seeing, so the person we are now is not, we see is not capable of doing that, but the person we see in the future, whether that's tomorrow, Monday, or January 1, we see as a different person, when it's not, it's the same person. And so that begs, I love that quote that you gave about, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. And so the question begs with that study is like, why not start now? Because the person you are now is the same person you're going to be then. So why wait to project that longing onto someone else, which is subconsciously what you're perceiving in your mind? And so it's just starting where you are right now. And it with all this like New Year's resolutions, and we see people like build up their resolutions and then crash, right? And I think a lot of that, we kind of spoke about this last week, comes from, again, this need to like do everything perfect at the get-go, where we need to kind of slowly pull back and slowly make changes. And I mean, my conspiracy mind thinks that this is all set up anyway to get our cortisol levels high, right? To get us in a stress state
Yes.
of our own doing, right? When really we can start taking my, it's funny, my mother used to use this example all the time when I was a little kid, because I've always had anxiety and I always got overwhelmed. And it's funny that we're both vegetarians, and I'm going to say this. My mother used to say, how do we eat this elephant? One bite at a time. We eat this elephant one bite at a time. We take one step at a time. And I always remember that, one bite at a time, one step at a time. And so, and I forgot what your original question was, Catherine. I was so stuck on that quote.
Well, I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I love the fact that elephants always used in the analogy, because one of the books that I'm reading at the moment that my amazing daughter recommended to me actually is called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I don't know if you've read it. It's absolutely brilliant, and I think this ties in so importantly to what we're seeing at the moment in the truther community and in the mainstream media, where we're looking at the parallels of where we're all being pulled to the same purpose, but different exception. So The Compound Effect, this is an absolutely brilliant book. And one of the things he says in there that makes me laugh every time I hear it is that elephants don't bite you, but mosquitoes do. So a tiny little mosquito can bite you, cause instant irritation, instant inflammation, transmit diseases, particularly ones released by Bill Gates at the moment. I'll say that quickly so it doesn't get picked up by the algorithms. And an elephant doesn't. So people, but what the whole purpose of why he's mentioned that in the compound effect, and it fits into the whole brainwashing agenda that you and I and everyone else who listens on this channel with us talk about a lot, but also about goal setting. Because the thing is, it's those little decisions that you're making all the time. So we all have to eat every day. We all have to drink every day. We all mainly sleep every day. We all mainly do some sort of movement every day. But the choices you make, coming back to the quote I said before, if you're not making conscious choices about them, then unconscious things will drive those decisions. And if you look at you and I and our audiences have spoken about this so many times before, that whether you're talking about the mainstream media or the alternative media, both of them are distracting us a lot with other information. Like at the moment, it's drones, and it's what's going to happen once we get change of leaders in all sorts of countries that's happening at the moment, what's happening with war zones all over the place. And if we don't have a strong purpose and strong goals that are going to transcend our lives, we're just going to get swept downstream with all this external noise. And the difference is, it's just like an FF. I've used a lot of trigger words. So, those wavy things that say what country you're in, like that. Well, a false one of those. Yeah. By saying these are distractions doesn't mean they're not true and they're not important. But what's really important is how much time and energy we're putting towards them. And all the while our attention's been taken here, whether it's by mainstream or alternative, we're losing sight of what's important to us. So are we suffering financially at the moment? Is our health below par? Is our relationships? Are we just not happy because we're so stressed with everything that's going on? And this is where really taking stock, it's where the whole New Year's resolution thing came in, as far as I'm aware, is the whole point of that was to get people to think, to do a self-assessment. What's going well for me and what do I want to upgrade in my life? And if I want to upgrade it, what do I realistically want to achieve? And then let's work backwards and put steps in there to achieve them. Because if not, you're just going to keep being swept along by all this external noise, which is true and is important, but it's not going to change your life for the better, quite the opposite.
You know, it's interesting, that whole self-study, self-reflection, we call that in yoga, we call that pratyahara, which is the kind of the whole, and you know, the whole thing is like, you know, we talk about meditation being one pointed focus, well, where the focus goes is where the energy flows, right? That's the power of the focus, the one pointed focus. And I wonder now too, Catherine, like the way that our world is going, you know, the way we see a rise of like narcissism and entitlement, how many people are actually able to self-reflect at this point? That's a huge ability to have self-reflection and be able to look and be like, okay, self-evaluation time, where do I need improvement, and so this is kind of what I think is going to start to separate people, is the people that can actually, in another way, critically think. Because we were talking off camera, we've said this, sound like a broken record on this channel, but there's just as much delusion in the truther world as there is in the normie world, and that what separates us is being able to critically think and discern, and then self-reflect on ourselves. So because when we critically think and discern, that is literal a form of self-reflection, when we're able to discern stuff and really look at things differently, or admit when we have made a mistake, or admit when our opinions have changed and all that kind of stuff. And so I love that idea with it's, you know, as we've been talking about, you and I both have some other stuff up our sleeves that we're going to be announcing to our channels very soon. But I was filming something the other day for this other project. And filming it, I said something that's been said a lot in my life, which is, do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Yeah.
Do something today. What can you do today that tomorrow you will thank you for? And when we work it down to just real basics, like even taking the conspiracy stuff out of it, you know, when you're on a good, clean eating plan or a workout program, and you wake up one day and you feel good, your stomach feels tighter, your back feels more supported, your head feels clearer. Well, that only happened, it's that compound effect, right? Because you started to make those decisions that didn't, and that's the thing too, Catherine. I think so many people want instant gratification with things. And I'll only say this word once, because I really want you and me to do a show on Ozempic. I'm only going to say that one time. But we've seen that, and which will definitely have to be on the other platform. But you and I have very similar opinions about this. And we see that a lot, especially in healthcare or weight loss or working out, where people want to instantaneously have this like, take a magic pill and it's all better. But over that journey of knowing where you're going, you have that goal. And we'll just go back to, I mean, this could be for anything, but let's for everyone to talk about your weight. Let's talk about, let's say that you have 30 pounds to lose, because this is common for most people. Well, it's not going to happen overnight, but you know, you have to make these little steps. Let's say you want to lose 30 pounds by summer in the Northern Hemisphere, winter for the Southern Hemisphere, for bathing suit season, basically. Well, that is possible from right now, December 2024 to, we'll say, June 2025. You absolutely could drop 30 pounds, but it's not going to be overnight. There's going to have to be steps involved. And we all know that, right? We know the first day you go to the gym, or the first day you eat healthy, you're not going to experience any real changes. In fact, you might experience detoxing symptoms that aren't
absolutely.
It might be kind of dark. The darkest before the dawn, right? It might be some rough patches before you push through that. But we know that logically, even though some people want to get a fix right away. I can't tell you how many people I know. We kind of spoke about this last week, because I said Julia Michaels, who's a trainer, is of the opinion that the gym is really where you find weight loss. And I kind of see what she's saying, but I do agree more, like it really is the kitchen is where.
Yeah, you can't out exercise a bad diet, and every single top athlete will tell you that. You can when you're sort of in your teens and 20s, but that's not really working. The problems are building up. You're just able to hide them better at those ages. But, you know, particularly once you move past your 20s, it's going to become very apparent that you really can't. And these short fixes just don't work. And I think, well, I know it was Jim Rohn that said that it's the day that you transition from being a child to being an adult is the day you take 100% responsibility for your life. And we see that when we're setting our goals and finding our purpose, because taking responsibility for your life, I think you and I talk about this black and white thinking a lot. Taking responsibility does not mean that you're not acknowledging that things that happened in your childhood have shaped who you are today. But taking responsibility for your life, your first goal might, for example, be, if you've suffered childhood trauma in whatever form that might be, to say that you're going to take responsibility for working through that.
Yeah.
And transmuting
find a
that.
therapist. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're saying taking responsibility doesn't mean that things haven't happened to you. It's that you take responsibility for not carrying that burden with you for the rest of your life.
You're taking responsibility to your reaction to what's happened to you. And you use that as fuel to change yourself versus being a slave to whatever has happened in your life. I love that. Yeah, that's exactly.
Sorry about my noisy dogs in the background. And can you see the red light? That's my cat.
I love it. I love it.
It's my cat's giving herself a red light treatment at the moment.
Fantastic. So. I apologize. I think you heard it. My noisy boyfriend came in and I heard him talking to Robbie. And I don't think he realized we were filming.
Yeah, I love my open fire and I love it being really hot, but my dogs get a little bit too hot. So Lola, lie down, darling. Sorry, dogs, they'll have to wait to go out for a minute. But yeah, so these all things all linked together. And I think the problem is that we're in this fast-paced society where everyone wants little sound bites of everything, but you can't address complex issues in a 30-second TikTok video or an Instagram video. You can put triggers in there to get people to start thinking about things, but you absolutely can't give solutions like this. But what is so wonderful is I think most of us now, given what we've been through over the last few years and our whole lives, but you know, since 2020, we've all gone through massive shifts, I think, in thought processes, understanding, awareness, consciousness. Is now we're in such a good state to sort of say, right, I'm no longer leaving it to everyone else. I'm going to really concentrate now on what's going to transform my life. So many people I've known have been so into the, let's call it the awakening journey, finding out what is going on, why these things have never made sense. And now it's all starting to fall into place, that they've forgotten to look after their health. They've forgotten to look after their wealth. And, you know, we all know that that's a deliberate plan as well. But once you know that, you don't need to dwell in that. You just need to take, going back to what Jim Rohn said, take responsibility yourself. Okay, this is where I live in the world. You know, I'm in the UK in the winter at the moment. We've got no sun at the moment. Part of that is natural because of where I live. A lot of that is not natural. Once I know that, what can I do about it? Get different ways of replacing what's not there for me at the moment to get out in nature.
And also, too, as you're saying this, Catherine, I think a lot of taking 100% responsibility, and I talk about this in my Alchemy of Movement workshop, because this is something that has affected me. A lot of times people, especially when you see somebody who is successful at something that you are striving, where you feel deficient in, people have the propensity to project onto that person as if that person's life has somehow been easier in that department. Now, and I do understand, like in the world of like business, yes, we can acknowledge that there is a lot of shady stuff going on that isn't fair, but just in the daily life, and I talk about this, you know, I've had people say to me before, oh, I wish I had your body, or and I'm like, well, you know, I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I do 2 hours of a really hard workout 6 days a week, and I don't eat. I eat what I need to eat. You know, there's a program that I'm on, and if you do this too, then that's the reaction you're going to have. But I've had people say to me so many times in the yoga shala, even online, well, you don't understand because you're, and I'm like, so you're totally just dismissing the fact that I've actually done this, that I've actually spent 19 years getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, well, I'm not a morning person. Neither am I.
Yeah.
You think anybody is that it's joyous for anybody to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? They do it because there's a motivation, a discipline there, because they know that it's going to benefit them. They know, and as that starts to benefit, I would say that to our Shala students, like once you start getting up that early and going to class and you are ready for your day, you realize the benefit, how you're feeling. If you go to Mysore at 4 a.m. and you're done by 5:30, 6 a.m., you shower, you go to work, you realize how much smoother your day is because you've already done this exercise. And so I think that's another part of taking responsibility, is stop projecting your insecurities onto someone else, because you don't know what that person has gone through in order to be where they are. And to negate that for that person, to try to dismiss that person's success because you're insecure, is not fair to you or that person. And so I talk about that in the alchemy of movement. Like, can you not use that as a motivating factor? Like, okay.
Oh, yes. Transmuting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously this eating healthy and exercising works, because look how many people do this discipline and are healthier and more vital, and they have strong bodies. Like, obviously there's been study out. If we're looking at this scientifically, there's a lot of studies out there from individuals that show that if you do this, and with the eating too, if I've had people say that to me, like, I want to go to the gym and work out so I can feel free to eat whatever I want. And I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. Because
And also what they're missing, sorry to interrupt, but what they're missing is when they do go to the gym and work out, they will make different food choices anyway. They won't crave the right things. I've gone back onto my green juices first thing in the morning, and I've been doing this for years, Bryce. And then over the last 6 months, I've let it lapse a lot, and I've really noticed the difference. And now I'm going back onto them. The taste, my microbiome in my mouth has to readjust. Instead of having my cup of tea, which is high in tannins and going to really not do my microbiome any good at all, is now adjusting. And so 10-day in, I've gone from like, oh, not really enjoying this, but I know I will, because I've been through this before, so I know it gets better. So now 10 days in, my microbiome's readjusted, loving it.
you crave it. And that's the thing too. I was about to say that. Yeah, like when you are working, you notice that that Snickers bar is not going to serve you like the kale will, or like the avocado will, or like, and so you start, and I talk about that with the alchemy of movement, that this is all, we have food. We know that a salad and a potato are both food that give you energy, but the value of the energy is different between these two different foods, right? Same thing with junk food and health food. Now, does that mean that every now and again you don't eat something naughty? Of course not. Like, my favorite casserole, you guys know my favorite casserole in the South. We have casseroles down here in the South for Thanksgiving and Christmas, is pineapple casserole. All it is pineapples, Ritz cracker, cheddar cheese, sugar, and butter. That's all it is. The healthiest thing in there is the pineapple, and that's it. But it's very bad for you. But Thanksgiving and Christmas come around, I'm going to eat some pineapple casserole. Now, the funny thing is too, Catherine, even with these, I laugh and I tell my, because I'm not opposed to drinking. I don't drink that much because of my schedule, but on holidays, I'll have a drink. And I tell my students all the time, at this point, a food hangover for me is worse than a drinking hangover, because my body is not used to having. And so you start to go through this metamorphosis of change, just because you're changing little habits. And that's the most important thing with the compound effect. Like, the most important thing is that you're not just overnight. Like, you don't go from being like a beer drinking, hamburger eating, fried, lazy person to overnight, all of a sudden January 1 rolls around and now you're going to be a raw vegan who only drinks water and runs 10 miles a day. If you did that overnight, that your body, you need to slowly start to take these little steps to change. I mean, we talked about this last week. For people, for my opinion, if people want to go vegetarian, I always say, well, let's take this slowly. First, cut off red meat, pork, and then we'll slowly take out poultry. Then last left would be fish, and do it slowly so that your body can adapt to these changes, so you don't have such a struggle with the detoxing or with smells. I know sometimes smells bother people when they're first coming off of eating meat, the smelling of meat cooking, which does pass, but it makes people feel a little nauseous, and we want to try to work as best we can around what's naturally going to happen anyway. And we talked about last week with cortisol levels, because I mentioned something that same thing with food having different energetic properties, so does exercise. You know, you're getting a different energy. You're creating energy in different ways from a run versus yoga or Pilates or dance or kickboxing. And so that's people. I don't think people really understand that, because I know so many people, Catherine, so many people. I just want to slam my head in the wall that think in order to lose weight they have to like do high impact cardio. 19.
I really want to talk about the cortisol, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is cortisol's labeled as bad now, and it's not the cortisol. It's like cholesterol's not bad. Cholesterol's a
Right.
building block for every single cell and every single hormone in the body. But so, you know, cortisol is a natural part of the body's stress response. It's, you know, it's absolutely designed to help us survive immediate challenges. So, for example, our flight or fight response, so acute stress, you know, they're the one everyone uses if you're being chased by a lion. But obviously, it could be anything. It could be you've had a car accident. It could be there's a siren going on. It could be you think that you're being followed by someone. You know, whatever that acute stress is, and acute just means happening right here in the moment. So you need your cortisol to go up there, which will then give your body release to glucose and give it the energy to get away. But also cortisol is really important for our natural circadian rhythm. So cortisol, when you wake up, it should peak in the morning to give us the energy provided for the day, interest, alertness, blood sugar regulation. But what's happening is if you've got chronic or long-term cortisol stress imbalances, it reverses, and then you get the high cortisol at night, which means you can't sleep, which adds to the problem anymore. But you also need high cortisol for physical exertion. So if you're playing a football match, for example, or soccer, as you call it there, and also for the body's inflammatory response. So, for example, if you're, you know, got an immune challenge or an accident, and your body's going into that inflammatory healing response. So the cortisol and the inflammation are bad when they're out of balance. They're not bad in themselves. And depending what your lifestyle is, you know, I put a post up which got so much controversy. It was hysterical, about fasting. And the point was, fasting, and that means everyone's got a different definition anyway, so they're not even talking about the same thing. But if you're in a stress response, the worst thing you can do for your body is to fast, because by fasting, you're telling your body, normally you'd fast in times when you want to detox or when you want to clear your mind or release extra energy. If you fast when you're in a time of lack, either mentally, emotionally, physically, then your body will go even more into a stress response. So
100%.
it's understanding these nuances. And yes, of course, we're all in a hurry. So we say, you know, cortisol as if it's a dirty word, but it's not. If we didn't have cortisol levels and cortisol spikes, we'd be in real trouble.
Well, that's the same thing with exercise. So like when people, I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who want to lose weight and they're killing their bodies doing these long runs, but they're gaining weight. And I said very simply, I'm like, you know, think about it in this term. For what we know with human beings being on this planet, we've lived in communities, like little tribal communities, right? Well, for most of our history, from what we know, whenever there was war, the next would be famine after war. And when you are running like this, your body is not recognizing it because your cortisol levels are already so high from stress. Your body really literally thinks you're in war right now because your cortisol levels are so high already. So then you go on a 5-10 mile run and your body literally thinks that you're living in the Stone Ages and you're being invaded, and it's inflaming, it's causing you to gain weight. There's famine after so your body is doing what it should be doing for the situation that your body thinks it's in. And it's up to you. And I always say, I guarantee you, if you do something to try to balance your cortisol levels with exercise, if you just take 6 months, of course, that comes down to diet too and lifestyle changes, but just from the exercise perspective, if you just back off of the cardio for like 6 months and just work on anaerobic, where you're not using oxygen as your resource of energy, but your glucose, you're going to start to see a change in your body. And when the body starts to release or lower the cortisol levels, the body starts to de-stress, the mind is going to start the mind and the body work hand in hand. So if the mind is stressed, it's going to eventually make the body's cortisol levels go up. When the cortisol levels start to go down, the mind's going to start to relax a little bit. And so all your goal, which is to lose weight, is probably going to happen the minute you start to look at what's actually happening in your body. But that goes back to it, Catherine, like, it's so confusing, I think, for people, because generally speaking, we all have the same skeletal system. We all have 2 kidneys, a liver, lungs, a heart. We have the same template of a body. But every single human being could not be any more different.
Yeah.
Every single human being is going to have a different energetic response to things, a different stress response to things. Some of this is going to come down to your environment. So like where Catherine lives and I live are 2 different environments, climate-wise, geographically, and so that takes effect as well. And one of the laws of Ayurveda is that you cannot be purer than your environment. So you have to work within the realms of where you live and where you are and how that affects your body. And for people, if they've lived in a certain, terrain and geographical location for a long time and they move to somewhere very different, a lot of times their body does go through a fluctuation of things trying to readapt to its new environment. And so these are all really important factors. And I think, Catherine, a lot of times if people don't, because with the cardio, it's like when people come with me with like wanting to do cardiovascular just to lose weight, I want to be like, you know what, 1986 called and it wants its cardio back. Like, we're not in the jazzercise era anymore. We now know more about this kind of things. Now, with that being said, if your cortisol levels are fine, then running and cardio is a great exercise.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that if your cortisol levels are really high right now that you're never going to be able to do that again. We just have to take care of the main problem first so that you can, because I know some people do enjoy going for long runs or they enjoy it. I'm like, so let's get that back to a balanced place so you can enjoy that again. There are many benefits to cardio, but if the cardio is not, just like there's amazing benefits to broccoli, but if you're allergic to broccoli, I'm allergic to broccoli. I didn't know that for a very long time, but I would have major reactions every time I ate broccoli, and I was forcing myself to eat broccoli because I thought it was healthy. Well, broccoli is healthy. It just doesn't work for my body. It's just not healthy for my body. And so we have to figure that out with different individuals. I love the whole fasting thing because I'm Vata. Vatas notoriously should never fast. Mm-hmm. Vatas, it messes us up. It does more harm than good. And so fasting for a Vata to rest the digestive system, for me, I know, okay, well, I stop eating at 5 p.m. and then I go to sleep, and most of my time where my digestive system is resting, I'm asleep. And so
that is what a lot of people call fasting, because this is the problem, is everyone says fasting, and it's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
There's a weak water fast, there's a juice fast, there's intermittent fasting. So because you have your last meal roughly what time?
5 p.m.
And what about when do you then break your fast the next day?
Probably when I get up and I do my practice. So we'll say, depending on my filming schedules, between 7 and 8 a.m.
Yeah. So that is well over the 12-hour period. So 12 to 14, 15 hours, which most people would call pumpkins trying to drink all my water now. No pumpkin. An intermittent fast. So this is what I mean, is sometimes this is where questioning and asking questions rather than people rushing to find fault or criticize. It's just like, well, let's see if there's a reason for this, and let's see where you're at. That's why there is never one size fits all, and also different priorities as you go through different stages of your life. So for example, if you're pregnant, you're going to have very different health goals to if you're a teenager or if you're 80. So going through and working out, it's so important to regularly assess where you are now and be really honest with yourself. Have you got into the track of listening to too much stuff online? Yeah. Are you reading? Are you educating yourself? Are you moving yourself forward to the life you want? And just looking at that balance, and that balance will change. It will change with the seasons. It will change with your age. It will change with kids leaving home. It will change with a health crisis. It will change with a financial crisis. But if you don't know, if you're not consciously moving forward towards some purpose that is for you, not for someone else, because all of ours will be different, then unfortunately, it doesn't matter whether you're on the alternative side or the mainstream, you're going to be taken in a direction which you can guarantee is not going to serve you.
100%. I would say for people, like, if something has piqued your interest, I would sit down and just journal and ask yourself, what facts do you believe are facts that might not be facts? Like, where are you programmed? Like, again, with the whole like cardio thing, are you someone that actually believes that's how you lose weight? And if this has triggered you and you noticed you can't lose weight, when you're, maybe start to journal about the programming of your mind and releasing that patterning of thought, especially with food too. You know, another great thing that we study in Ayurveda, which makes sense to me, is when you live in a country or an area of the world where season change is intense, like if you go from hot summers to cold winters, so the fall and the spring. Now we have this saying like spring cleaning, like everyone goes in spring. But in Ayurveda, that might be great for your house, but with your body, the junction of the seasons is the last time. That's not when you want to start like detox or doing a cleanse or doing anything like that, because your body, I mean, if people, you might notice it, like whenever the seasons are changing, you might feel a little bit more tired, or you might feel a little bit more swollen. It's because your body is trying to move with the seasons and get itself prepared for the winter or for the summer. And so we always recommend students when they want to do a cleanse, and you do it in the dead of winter or in the middle of the summer when the body is already stabilized within the season. So therefore the outside elements are not going to be as effective in throwing you off than it would be otherwise. And even with cleansing, just like fasting, there's so many different cleanses people do. And I want to shake people sometimes, like the juice cleanse. Listen, if someone like Catherine or me, because we're both got a lot of vata in us, were to do just a flat out juice cleanse, it would throw our system off completely because it's so much vata energy. So for us, for like vata is like a khichdi cleanse is actually what's recommended. And so just learning that about different elements of energy within food and different elements of energy within exercise and within nature, I think, at least for me, that's what gave me more power in my decisions. Yeah. And I wasn't reliant upon some expert out there telling me what was good or bad. I think I mentioned last week, Catherine, because I've always had horrific digestion problems, which is a vata thing, and it's also an RH negative thing. So I had the double whammy. Well, and I remember being like 15, and I had been in and out of the doctor my whole life, in the hospital with my colon. And I was at the doctor and they were trying to figure out something was going on. I can't remember what exactly was going on. I probably couldn't go to the bathroom. That's typically for me, is I just can't go to the bathroom. And I remember sitting there on the table, a doctor saying, well, you just need to eat more fiber. And I remember like being like thinking, because I already knew what fiber was at that point. And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking that doesn't work, because it just swells my stomach. It doesn't go anywhere. And we walked out of the doctor's office, and I remember looking at my mom being like, he didn't know anything. I remember saying that at 15, like that guy didn't know anything. I was like, if I eat fiber, my mom, we had cereal called Fiber One. I don't know if that still exists anymore, if y'all had it. It was like these little, you put in it, like swelled up in milk, and they would feed me Fiber One to try to get me to go to the bathroom. But it would literally.
Well, there you go. You never eat fiber with dairy. Again,
my stomach would just swell, like and nothing would happen. It wouldn't go anywhere. And I mean, I was a kid at the time, so.
But that's it. But this is why we all know that the food pyramid was completely made up to keep us sick and unhealthy, not that, because as you wouldn't, like, you shouldn't eat fruits with dairy either.
Yeah, exactly.
And things like that, because they curdle in your stomach. And it is interesting about, I really wanted to come back to the fasting, because with European herbal medicine, because generally speaking, in a lot of places in Europe, not in all, because there's huge differences in climate across Europe, and for this purpose I'm talking about for continental Europe, and the UK sort of sits within that area geographically. We say in herbal medicine the best time to do a cleanse is when the leaves are coming on the trees in the spring, and when the leaves are coming off the trees in the autumn. The big difference for that was because we don't have, our seasons merge gently into one or the other. We don't have, obviously some places in Europe have really hot summers and really cold winters, but a lot of us, they merge in very gently, and therefore we can do that there. Whilst for me, I did my first, and you learn this is how you learn things, by doing them wrong. I did my first proper real cleanse in the mid of winter, and with my lifestyle being out in all weathers, doing the horses and the animals, really hard physical work, it was a disaster for me. My immune system So what did I learn from that? I learned that if you're in a really cold climate, you don't do it necessarily, because we have gentle transitions, so you do it then. But secondly, you make sure your immune system's strong enough before you do a cleanse.
Oh, I second that too. Like if
I
you
made that mistake so badly, and so many people I know, and trust me, you only do it once.
Yeah, if you struggle with like any autoimmune type of issues, I say that loosely because I have my own
Yeah.
theory on autoimmune stuff. But if that's something you struggle with, I would, it's so funny because my boyfriend, when he was in his like 20s, early 30s, he was constantly doing all these cleanses. Like he was just so into, he was like a raw vegan, like he was just very almost dogmatic about everything he put in his mouth. And one time, like a naturopath doctor said to him that he had nothing left to cleanse. Like, you've got to stop. You've got nothing left to cleanse. And so, in that respect, your body, what I think the most important thing people learn is that your body already has mechanisms detoxing organs, your fascia detox through your skin, your liver, your leaves, kidneys. You have so many organs. Your colon is like the trash can of your system. You have a lymphatic system that's draining your body is already set up to start to always be kind of going through everything and detoxing out what it doesn't need. So the best thing is to start, actually, for me to start with, like, Catherine, if I had somebody come to me who was like 50 pounds overweight, never been into health and wellness, and all of a sudden wants to, the last thing I would do is put them on a cleanse right then and there.
Oh, you certainly do not go all in there.
No.
You'll do more harm than good.
Yeah.
You'll really demoralize the person. You've got to get the basics. And that's why I think really either understanding yourself or working with someone who's really experienced in this, because it's like everything, all of us, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are, how much life experience, none of us know everything about everything, but people
Right.
have different passions and different areas of expertise. So that's the beauty of getting the support, because, trust me, when you do what I did and did a full-on cleanse in the middle of the winter when my immune system wasn't strong enough anyway to handle it, you do only make that mistake once and you learn from it. And, I was lucky enough that I was pretty fit and healthy anyway, so it wasn't disastrous, but it could have been. It really could have been. So I think really understanding, going back to what you started with and going back to when we talked about the compound effect and setting goals as well, is it's so important to be reasonable with yourself. We were not put on this planet to rush through life of anything. We were put on the planet to, go through and have this journey. There's a reason why people go on road trips, to enjoy the scenery, enjoy the company, enjoy the different foods you get on the app. And that's like, when you're looking to make these changes, so often it's the little changes, this compound effect, the little changes that make the biggest impact, and then you enjoy the journey. And that's absolutely critical, because if you don't, you will fail in your goal. You will not stick to it, and that's been proved time and time again, and you could do yourself a lot of damage in the process.
And speaking of the journey, I mean, at the end of the day, and I think we can testify to this, Catherine, like, let's say, and again, this can be a metaphor for any type of transition you want to make in life, but we're using health and weight loss because that's the big one for people, and it's something that we are educated in. Let's say you do go on a weight loss and fitness journey and you finally get to your goal weight, or you get to where you want to be in your fitness realm. It doesn't stop there.
No.
You have to keep going. Like, you can't, and even with that, like, everything's going to fluctuate and change. Like, for me, on a daily basis, my energy is fluctuating and changing. Now, the good thing for me is that, I think you could probably test this too, Catherine. Like, if I feel like I got a couple extra pounds in my stomach or something, I can notice that right away. Like, I now know, and I can immediately take action to course correct. And so you start to become more familiar with your subtle body experiences, so you can start course correcting right away. But, I think that's the thing too, is people think they've got this goal to get to this particular size or this particular weight, or being able to run a 5K or a 10K or whatever. But once you get there, you have to keep working to stay there, right? And it's going to shift and change. And you're right. I love that thing about, like, this. I mean, I threw my scales out at 27 because, listen, all body weight is how, well, this is what they tell us. Whether I have my own opinions. I mean, whatever gravity is, we'll say, but that's just how much gravity it takes to keep you on the earth, right? That's your body weight. And depending on your skeletal system, there's a lot of different factors in this, depending on how long your torso is. For women, depending on how big your boobs are, especially if you got muscly based boobs. your weight is not going to be, you could have a 5'5", I'm 5'5", you could have a 5'5" woman who's 110 pounds, and you can have a 5'5" woman who's 130 pounds, and they could wear the exact same size.
Exactly.
And there's so many factors in this as to why one weighs more than the other, but they're actually appear to be the same size. This is muscle.
I don't even have any scales.
We
I
don't
don't have any scales. No.
We don't
Although
have.
the only time I use scales is with some of my animals, particularly when they get elderly,
Yeah.
or if, because with, obviously I'm responsible and I'm quite tuned in to how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
But with my animals, where I'm having to make decisions for them, it's really useful to sort of weigh them to see, because if they've got a herd of guinea pigs, you can't tell which guinea pig is eating how much food.
Right.
Things like that. But for me as a human, I don't ever weigh myself. I don't have a clue, and people think you're trying to hide something. I'm not. I really, honestly, haven't got a clue. I know how my jeans fit.
Yep. I know what size
I know how I feel. And I know when I've gone off track, which I have. Like, I will be completely transparent. Over the last year, my health has gone quite off track. Now I can tell you loads of reasons for it. But the reason is I didn't prioritize that as a goal. Yes, other external forces influenced it, but I'm not bothered about that, because I've got the skills in my toolkit to get back on track, which I'm now really enjoying starting to do. So some of the times it's like, even when you're taking a certain health supplement, or with friends, or doing a particular activity, sometimes you realize how much good it's doing you when you take a break from it. So it's like getting over this shame. There's nothing wrong with falling off the bandwagon and going off track, whether it's in your finances, whether it's in your friendship, whether it's your personality and who you become at the moment by these influences, whether it's your weight, whether it's your health, whatever aspect it is. For me, the most important thing is not having this self-assessment can be done in a really healthy way.
Yeah.
You're the one who puts your head on the pillow at night and has to live with the person you are. If you're lying to yourself, the only person that's really going to suffer is you.
100%. 100%. Your delusion is not going to get you to where you want to be, and being able to rip off that delusion and have an honest look at yourself, and start to that. And I think this stuff is fun. Like, it's fun to self-discover. It's fun to try different. I mean, I'm still, to this day, I see a new, like we talked about strip aerobics last week.
Yes.
Poor
I thought I got the wrong end of the stick on that one.
She thought I was taking on a part-time job. If that ever happens, guys, I'll put the business up on the, no, I'm just kidding. There's all these different, I'm constantly researching and trying different workouts, just so I can see what's being created and what's, it's like, well, it's newish, like the HIIT workouts, where they've realized that you do 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, 30 minutes on. This is a relatively new, it's not new, but it's, as far as the world of exercise, this is a relatively new form of looking at the way. And what they're doing is they're getting your heart rate up and then dropping it, heart rate up and dropping it, which is a more intensified form of interval training. So it's interesting to me to study these things and then study myself to see how my body reacts to that, how my mind reacts to it. And the same thing, a tip I'll give for food. We did this with our, because people I can't afford, people, I get that I can't afford to go to an Ayurvedic doctor. I can't afford all this. Well, there's, and having a professional is always the best option, to have somebody to help you. However, you're still a critically thinking person. Like we did with the shadow work challenges, I had people keep a food journal, and it wasn't for diet purposes. It was literally for you to write down everything you ate. So if you had, let's say you have scrambled eggs in the morning, you scramble them in butter, you write that down, butter, eggs, coffee, whatever, every little, put sugar in it, whatever and then you write it all down, and then you wait 30 to 45 minutes, and you then write down how you feel, how your body feels, how your mind feels, how your energy levels are. And so you start to realize, without having to know, or I'm Vata Pitta, or I'm Kapha Pitta, or whatever, you start to realize okay, well, this combination of food doesn't work for me, but this combination does. But this food, just every time I have it, I feel sick, or I don't feel good. So I'm going to eliminate this for a moment and see if that changes things. You can start to self-discover through your own experimentation, with different, I love that. Writing down, I had Snickers bars and Kit Kats, and the Kit Kats suit me better than the Snickers bars. That's not, I'm talking about actual real food.
Exactly.
Not
And I think
calories.
Yeah, it's lovely, and be with people that will celebrate your success as well is really important. So I'm doing a lot of work at the moment with people on weight loss. And the reason I'm doing that is because it affects their confidence, affects their energy levels, it affects their sleep. There's loads of knock-on health benefits. And what's amazing, what inspires me most is one, people sharing their experiences, and people are always cheering from, it's almost like we said last time, if you don't look that you've got much weight to lose, you haven't got any health, physical or mental issues that are major issues. Of course, everyone's got something, but I'm talking life-changing issues that are really affecting your quality of life, then people aren't so interested. But the people that are making the huge shifts, it's so wonderful to see how everyone's cheering them on. It's so wonderful. So it really doesn't matter what your starting point is. It's those people. Look at who gets up on stage in these things. It's the people that have gone from here to here or here to here, whatever you're measuring. It's like, it's not about where you are now. It's about you making a decision today where you want to be. Can I just share that goals book? Because I just want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
People.
Let me pull it. I have it.
I'll tell you why. Because look, there's so much accountability, partner, and we all know there's nothing really that Bryce and I probably talk about that we don't know, because so much of it is common sense. But there's a difference between knowing it and implementing it. So we've just lit in this today. My daughter, who's a professional athlete and also a mental performance coach. But what it is, it's an ebook. And what we've done this time, Bryce, if you scroll down, is we've got it on a donation basis. Because obviously it costs me money to so here, if you click on the down arrow by the $1.99, the reason we've got different price points, and not just as a free one for this, is sometimes if there's an energy exchange, people will do it.
Yeah.
But so everyone's a different starting point. But obviously just hosting a website with courses and things like that on it costs quite a lot of money. So you can literally do everything from $1.99 to £20. So if you want to give more, feel free to. But the thing is, you can work through this as a family or with a group of friends or in a community you're in. Feel free to share it, because this book takes you through beautifully with examples of the whole process of what do you want your goals to do, cross-checking that why do you want to achieve these goals, because if your why is not strong enough, you will not stick to it. So it's something we're trying out. I'd love people, because there's also a new page on my website. I can't remember where it is, but we'll find it somewhere, where people can, I think it's on the consoles, where people can leave feedback, because what we're doing is sort of saying, look, what do you find useful, community? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we can listen and consume content as much as we like, but if we're not going to do something different as a result of that, then your life's not going to change.
Absolutely. I love that, guys. And I will have that down, a link to her ebook down in the description box below. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it is, I say this before, some of my favorite, there used to be a magazine here in the United States. I don't know if they still, it was a fitness magazine, but I always would get that magazine at the grocery store, because my favorite part, even when I was like a teenager, I didn't really care about all the fitness stuff, but I loved, they always had articles about people who had gone on weight loss journeys. And even as a teenager, even though that was never a thing for me, I loved reading those stories because they were so inspiring. And I still find those stories so inspiring, because even though I've never struggled with that, I'm still a human being who has struggled in other areas. And seeing that resilience of people making that decision, people who went from being 100 pounds overweight and living very sloppy, lazy lives, making that decision and then changing their diet and slowly changing their workout, and reading the story about how their life just shifted and changed, and they lost the weight, and then all these, I mean, it is so inspiring. Even for me now today, 19 years into this myself, I love reading those stories, because they just remind you of how powerful the humans are. The human resilience is unbelievable. And when we put again, where your focus goes is where the energy flows. And so
look at the financial success stories. We love it, don't we? When someone's had a really tough start in life, and they've changed their life around, it doesn't matter, okay, I know we won't get into that debate as to what matters and what doesn't, how much you can get away with. That's a whole different area, which will have different boundaries for all of us. But there's nothing more inspiring, because it's like Joe Dispenza says, when you get ordinary person, and I'm putting ordinary in inverted commas for anyone that's just listening to this, because there is no such thing as an ordinary person. We're all extraordinary. Every cat's extraordinary. Every plant's extraordinary. But the beauty of my Joe Dispenza's events, when someone goes to them, is so overpowering, is when you see someone that's older than you, that's poorer than you, that's sicker than you, whatever more than you is, and you see how just by literally, in this case, doing a strict meditation practice can literally change their biology expression overnight. So with these miraculous cures, then it takes away your excuse. You know, I recently came back from my trip to Bulgaria, and what really did it for me, and I will be sharing more about this next year, but what really did it for me is our instructor was older than me, at least 10 years. I know I've mentioned this before. He'd had a really tough life. He's not from privilege at all, you know, things like this. He had the flexibility of a woman gymnast, the strength of a male gymnast, the personality of a Buddhist monk. I mean, I honestly, I cannot tell you how lovely and inspirational this person was. And so it takes away all your excuses.
And look at Bobby Kennedy Jr. Look at
him.
He is 30 years older than me and I look at him and I'm worried about that. Like, and I get older, but I look at him and I'm like, no. And then you look and see there's other people in their 70s, women who have six packs, who there is no excuse. It is.
And he had addiction issues. And everyone, yes, he's from the Kennedy family, the privileges. Well, with being with the Kennedy family also comes an awful lot of trauma.
A lot of disadvantages of being a Kennedy.
You know, every study will show you that the people that have the hardest time a lot of the time with self-destructive behaviors are often ones from very privileged backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because they've taken that body away.
It's still a body. It doesn't matter if you're poor or rich. It's still, you still have a body. Robert Kennedy's body still, if he eats too much, is going to gain weight. Just like you know, like it's still there. And I laughed. I sent you a text message, Catherine, because something popped up either on TikTok or Instagram of him feeding his dogs.
Oh yes,
his dogs the same diet that Catherine. Like I sent you that, and I was like, you should totally work with him on animal health because he's obviously taken a page from your book because he doesn't feed his dogs kibble.
I've seen him feed his dogs kibble.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the one I saw, he was adding a bit of fresh to kibble. So if you're out there, Bobby, watching this, then I would love to
stick with the meat, dude. Stick with the meat. You were feeding your dogs, yeah.
But in all seriousness, I think it's really exciting. I've gone through this process. I've gone through the goal book, and trust me, it was difficult because I had a lot of excuses coming up as to why I wasn't going to do these things. And I feel really inspired now. I feel inspired because physically I'm not where I want to be. So watch this space, 6 months time, guys. You know, I've got professional goals that I want to shift, which I'm really looking forward to that. So anyone who's on any of my channels will be getting a little invitation to fill out a little survey if you so wish. I'm really excited for the change. I think all of us in this community, Bryce, we're learning and assimilating so much. Now I really feel the delivery time is upon us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny. My mother said to me once, my mother has always been on.
I'd love to meet your mum.
My mother, she said to me once she was thinking about opening up her own YouTube channel to track her diet, her dieting and her exercising. Because my mother's always been, that was a big thing growing up, of her on Weight Watchers. And I mean, I have so many memories of sitting at a Weight Watchers. Like my favorite memory is when it was before Thanksgiving and the Weight Watch. I was little. I remember sitting in the back, like coloring while my mother was at the meeting. And the woman was like, now remember, if you gobble, 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 you wobble, wobble, wobble. And I just like, I still remember that to this day. If you gobble, 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 you wobble, wobble. And my mother had said to me, because her weight has always fluctuated. And she said to me once, I kind of want to open up a YouTube channel just to keep me accountable so I can. And I was like,
I'd watch it.
I know my mother's in her late 60s, and I'd
love to watch that. I love it. There's so much. I'm one of these people. I do love some YouTube channels that I love. Candace Owens. Yeah. Although I did actually for the first time ever put a comment on one of her videos yesterday. But I do really love her. But I love the real life ones. I love the real life adventures. I know you've worked with some people on your media course that you and Jay do, which is phenomenal, because I love these real life stories. They're the ones that really
Yeah.
really inspire me. And actually it does restore your faith in human nature, because you really feel yourself getting behind these people and wanting to support in any way you can.
And my
And
mother's
sometimes we forget that people are happy to do that for us too.
right. And my mother, for her it was more accountability because her weight fluctuates.
Yes.
But I think she would inspire people because she's in her late 60s. She has 4 biological grandchildren, 3 step grandchildren that they've only known her. So she's got 7 grandchildren. She doesn't work. Her and my stepdad are retired, and so and I think she's doing great. I mean, when my grandparents were her age, they were grandparents. So my mother's out in the yard all the time. She loves to garden. She's out playing with the kids. So she already has this sense of vitality that my grandparents didn't have when I was a kid. Like she takes the kids swimming all the time, and she'll get in the pool with them. And so and my mom can be funny. She doesn't mean to be funny, but she's just very Southern. And so she really likes food, though. That's her. My mom can, she's ran multiple road races. She can flat out exercise, but she likes her food. And so that's, I think, her accountability is wanting. And so I think she should let me know in the comment section, guys, if you want my mama to do a YouTube channel.
I'd watch it, because I just love it. And you with your and I jobs, that's part of the reason why I picked this job, because I do a lot of mentoring for people. It's my favorite thing in the whole world, working with clients and mentoring them. I just love it. And the beauty is when you set yourself up for success, because it's a win-win situation, because I'm never going to be telling someone to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself.
Right,
now, of course,
exactly.
We've got different goals. My health goals are different to your health goals. I would not be able to do yours. Well, I would if I wanted to, but it's not passion of mine. But I really admire you doing it.
Yeah.
And having friends that keep themselves that fit and healthy like you two helps keep me on track as well.
So I will have to say, I think about you all the time, Catherine, how early you get up with your animals, how you do a lot of physical labor in your job taking care of the animals too. And that's different, because the only physical labor I do with my baby animal is just taking him on WALKs. I can't say the words, I know he'll hear it. I'm not out having to feed a bunch of horses. And so that's it. That's another thing as well, like your lifestyle. If you do
build it into your routine. Yeah. My husband has got so much fitter just by chopping logs, because that's a functional exercise where you're actually going across all your different core strengths of your bodies. So those of us, they did a study very quickly. I know we're going on, but it's really important for those women out there. And I know men do cleaning as well, but a lot of the time it's women. They did a study with cleaners, and it's the intent behind it, because cleaning is a hugely physical job. Hugely physical job. You're reaching up, you're bending down, you're twisting and turning. Yeah. And in this study, what they did is they asked the cleaners, it was a big cleaning company, and they split them into 2 groups. And at the start of the study, they asked the cleaners if they did much physical exercise. And they all said, no, I don't, because I'm working all day. Well, I mean, their work was hugely physical, but they didn't have the intent behind it. And then they told one group, they basically just said, oh, okay, just carry on. And they were measuring all their vital statistics. The other group, they spent a little bit of time, and it wasn't long, just saying, well, do you realise every time you're making a bed, every time you're hoovering, every time you're scrubbing the bath, look at all these muscles you're doing, look at this. So they did exactly the same work, but with a different intention. And the ones that understood how it was helping them shed loads of weight. Their enthusiasm, their energy levels, and every single metric improve hugely just by having a different intent of doing the same thing. So those people who, are spending a lot of time looking after the family, cooking, cleaning, shopping, walking a dog, picking your kids up from school, you might be able to do slightly different things. If you're able to walk to pick the children up from school, fantastic. If not, you're able to take the kids for a walk after school, fantastic. Or when the children are playing on the swings, can you be doing something silly yourself, But there's a lot of daily exercise that we can do just doing proper daily tasks like cleaning.
100%. I always think about that, because today, actually, this afternoon is my cleaning day here. And I always think about that when I'm scrubbing the bathtub and the toilet, because I know what's happening. I know what muscles are being used. And and I have to fair play to my sister. My sister's good about that. She makes her kids go outside for an hour every day after school and play. She can go outside, get on the trampoline, swing, and so she's setting that up for them to have that healthy, active lifestyle, get off of the tablets, off of the you know. And oh my God, you guys, my nephew who's 12, he has a cell phone now. I almost died when he told me he got a cell phone. I was like, you're not old enough. I was like, how can you have a cell phone now? How can you be
We never think
now?
they're old enough. We never do. And it's so funny. You
Text messages from him. Like, how?
Yeah, it's so funny. You know, you look back when you were at university and you thought you were so grown up, and now you look back at university and you're like, oh, they're just babies, you know.
I will
So
say,
yeah,
before we sign off, we Georgia Tech, which is it's a big, famous, great school here. It's like a couple blocks away from us, and they have a huge campus. And we take our dog over there to WALK a lot. They've got some fountains he likes to play in, and sometimes we typically go over there when school's not in session because there's not a lot of people around. But one time we made the mistake, and we went in the middle of a. There were lots of kids everywhere, and my boyfriend was standing there with the dog, and he was like, "Who are all these children?"
yes,
And I said, they're college students. He goes, no, these are children. I was like,
yeah.
they're college students. You're just
Because
old.
we're getting old. We're getting old.
I was like, they can be your children. Like, they can be your kids. So,
Yeah,
who
I
are
know.
these children? Just the way
I thought myself, I can always remember my nan saying to me, you know you're old when the policemen look young. Well, the policemen look young to me now. But I'm not, I don't feel old at all. I really don't.
I just cracked. Because these are 18 to 22-year-old kids. And he's like, who are these children? Just like,
I know. I feel the same. You see people driving behind the cars and you're like, they're babies.
like, where's your car seat? Where's your
Yeah,
seat?
exactly.
So anyway, guys, well, I will put all the links down in the description box below. Maybe in the new year, I can get my mom to do a coffee chat with us. And if you guys want Alice Bradley, you want Alice Bradley to come on here and do and I can help her set up a YouTube channel because I don't know if she knows how to do that, but I can show my stepdad how to do that so he can continue to help her. So to chart her weight loss journey. I can't teach her because that's against the rules. We're not supposed to work. She has come to some of my classes before, and it's been hysterical because I'll be like, Mom, Mom. And she's like, but this is not comfortable. Like she kind of, so you can't really work with anybody you have an intimate like I couldn't be Catherine's teacher because she's my friend. You know, there are boundaries there, but you know, but she is very funny, and I think if we got her, she doesn't mean to be. She's just real Southern. She's real Southern. Yeah. So yeah, guys, let me know.
I love it. I would 100% watch. Yeah, tell her. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I should say, we will be back next week on Catherine's channel. So make sure all of her links will be down in the description box, including her ebook, all that kind of stuff. And make sure you guys share Catherine's ebook around to your friends and family as well.
It's a great present, you know, if you've got anyone in your family that's looking to sort of, you know, it's a great thing to sit down if you're lucky enough to have a few days off of holiday or something as a family. It's a fantastic set of exercise to do as a family. You know, you can do this for even quite young children.
I might get a copy to send to my mom. I'll have to get her. I don't actually know my mom's email address. Is that bad? I know her phone number by heart, but I don't know her email address. So, because I don't email my mom, I just call her. So
exactly.
And my mom, what was that? There was somebody made a funny comment, like when you're at a certain age, you know, like when you call, your mom always picks the phone up for you, but you get to a certain age where sometimes they don't pick up the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, what can be more important than me? Like you get so offended when all of a sudden your mom like puts your call to voicemail for a minute. Because when you're young, like when I was in college, every time I called my mom would pick the phone up. But now I'm in my 40s, sometimes she hits the ignore button. And I just remember that TikTok, I'm like, oh, what could be more important than me, her child? So I'll get her email address and then I'll get Catherine's book. So, all right, you guys. Well, we
have a brilliant weekend, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.